The man finished what he called his last meal and then began wiping down the utensils, carefully erasing all traces of his fingerprints. After quickly writing his final letter, he opened the window and climbed out onto the ledge of a hotel on the 21st floor. From such a height, a fall would undoubtedly result in a gruesome death. However, Jack wasn't planning to jump. He had something far more dramatic in mind. Jack had once been an honest and upright police officer, but he was falsely accused of stealing a diamond worth $50 million. The accusation led to his conviction and a 25-year prison sentence. To make matters worse, many of the inmates in the prison were criminals that Jack had personally arrested, forcing him to live every day with extreme caution. Over the years, Jack had tirelessly filed appeals, but every single one was rejected. Then, his former partner brought devastating news. Jack's father was gravely ill and didn't have much time left. Feeling helpless, his partner managed to secure a one-day parole for Jack, explaining it was the most he could do. Despite this, Jack still didn't make it in time to see his father one last time. Overcome with grief, Jack went to the 21st floor of the hotel determined to clear his name. It didn't take long for a crowd to gather below. The police arrived quickly, setting up an inflatable safety cushion and cordoning off the entire street. When a negotiator went up to talk to Jack, he flatly refused to engage, instead demanding that Mary come up. Mary arrived shortly after, confused because she had no idea who Jack was. She curiously asked why he had called for her. Jack explained that Mary was famous, and that was exactly why he wanted her there, to draw more attention. Sure enough, when the media discovered that Mary was sent to negotiate, they sensationalized the story, adding fuel to the fire. Mary instructed her colleagues to collect fingerprints from the hotel room to confirm Jack's identity, and then continued trying to persuade him. But before long, a colleague handed her a note. There were no fingerprints found anywhere in the room. At that moment, Mary realized something critical. This man had come prepared. It was clear that he wasn't there to commit suicide. He had a much bigger plan in mind. The man began frantically scattering large amounts of cash, but it wasn't without reason. He had a hidden agenda to create a distraction and cover for his brother Jerry and Jerry's girlfriend Anna, who were across the street preparing for a heist. Jerry and Anna arrived at a pre-concealed location, carefully set up the wiring, and dragged over a steel plate. They connected the wires, secured the plate in the center, drilled a hole, and placed a prepped explosive inside. Finally, then they covered everything with a mattress. With everything in place, all they needed now was for Jack to execute his part of the plan. The sound of screams successfully masked the explosion. Jack sighed with relief, taking a moment to collect himself. He asked Mary for a cigarette to calm his nerves. Mary lit her last cigarette and handed it to Jack, telling him to leave half for her. When she got the remaining half, she discreetly passed it to her colleagues inside the building, instructing them to collect fingerprints from the cigarette butt. Meanwhile, Jerry and Anna, now inside the ventilation ducts through the hole created by the explosion, made their way to the floor containing the diamond vault. Reaching a blind spot in the surveillance system, Jerry took out a camera and snapped photos of the security camera's view. He then printed the images, placed them on a model, and stuck the fake feed in front of the camera to fool the system. But their relief was short-lived as they ran into an unexpected problem. Sensors had recently been installed in the hallway, something that wasn't part of their plan. The two froze, unsure of what to do. Jerry had no choice but to reach out to Jack for help. However, with negotiator Mary standing right in front of him, Jack couldn't respond directly. Instead, he cleverly used his conversation with Mary to pass along instructions. Jack subtly suggested they cool things down. Anna caught on immediately, realizing they needed to lower the temperature to bypass the sensors. Following this, the pair managed to reach the vault door. They pulled out their tools and prepared to enter through the side ventilation duct. At the same time, police had identified Jack's fingerprints from the cigarette. It turned out Jack was the same former cop who had been arrested years ago for stealing diamonds and had just escaped from prison the previous day. To make matters worse, the hotel they were currently in belonged to the owner of the stolen diamonds, and the diamond exchange was located directly across the street. Upon learning this, the police chief immediately alerted the security team to check on the vault. However, what they didn't expect was the man placed a rotten apple into the fridge, then carefully spread cockroach eggs, known for their rapid breeding, inside all Her 7-year-old son left him alone by the side of the road. But when she returned just 2 minutes later, the boy had mysteriously disappeared. Anna initially thought her son was deliberately hiding from her. Frustrated, she angrily threatened him, saying that if he didn't come out soon, she would ban him from using his phone. However, no matter how long she waited, her son was nowhere to be seen. In a vast forest, filled with dangers for someone unfamiliar with the area, the risks were unimaginably high, especially for a 7-year-old child. At this point, Jack began blaming his wife. He agreed the boy needed to be disciplined for his behavior, but he argued that leaving him alone like this was far too harsh. He criticized Anna for abandoning their son in such a place, but Anna remained defensive, insisting it was only 2 minutes, and convinced herself that nothing serious could have happened. With no other choice, Jack continued calling out their son's name, hoping for a response. Meanwhile, Anna tried to maintain her composure, but it was clear she was growing increasingly anxious. It began to dawn on her that her choice of punishment might have led to something far worse than she had anticipated, a potential family tragedy. As the sun began to set, Anna's fear intensified. Her body started trembling as the gravity of the situation overwhelmed her. The thought of losing her son because of her actions was unbearable. She had no idea how she could live with herself if this situation spiraled into the worst-case scenario. Overcome with distress, she walked back to the car and lit a cigarette, trying to calm her nerves. Just then, she received a phone call from her mother. Pretending everything was fine, Anna lied, saying her son was right beside her. She even asked him, as if he were there, what food he wanted to eat, successfully deceiving her mother. Moments later, Jack returned to the car, still empty-handed. He hadn't been able to find their son. Anna, in a desperate attempt to lure the boy out, grabbed a tablet playing music and called out to him. She promised that if he came out and apologized, he would be allowed to play on his phone for an entire month. But when her efforts failed, Jack decided it was time to call the police to report their missing child. Shockingly, Anna opposed the idea of involving the authorities. Was it possible that she didn't want to find her son? The man leaned tightly against a large tree, praying desperately for his son's forgiveness. Suddenly, a strange noise came from nearby. The father immediately sprinted toward the sound, frantically searching and screaming his son's name. After 2 heart-wrenching shouts, the father collapsed to the ground, completely exhausted. Soon, the police arrived at the scene and began a thorough investigation. However, Anna chose not to reveal the truth. She merely explained that her son had wanted to use the bathroom along the way, but didn't like being watched, so he went into the woods alone. They had warned him to be careful and even lied, saying there were lions in the area to scare him into staying close. But in the blink of an eye, the boy was gone. Unexpectedly, the police confirmed that there were indeed lions in this area. Not many, but they existed. This revelation sent a chill down the couple's spines. The female officer emphasized that time was critical and urged the couple to stay calm and cooperate. She then asked Anna to guide them to the exact spot where the boy had disappeared. After a careful inspection of the area, the officer brought Anna and Jack back to the roadside to wait for the arrival of the search dogs. During this time, the officer asked if there had been any conflicts. Anna quickly denied it. When the officer learned the boy was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt, she stressed the urgency of finding him quickly, as the temperature would drop sharply at night, and low visibility would make the search even more difficult. The officer instructed the couple to remain where they were. Jack began tending to his wounds and urged his wife to tell the truth. Anna, however, believed that if she admitted to the conflict between her and her son, the police would focus on that issue, instead of searching seriously for the boy. As she sat in the car, Anna found her son's backpack and discovered the books she had bought for him. Just as she was about to praise him for being so thoughtful, she opened one of the books and found it filled with scribbles and doodles. At that moment, Anna realized her son resented her. She completely lost her composure.